Once everything's perfectly organized, I'll start working on my thesis.
Did I not watch this?
I want to take a moment to thank... Hi, I'm Barry McCocker, and it's time to trigger every NFL Fanbase 2023 edition. Now it's time for the NFC. Right after this, I want to take a moment to thank DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. NFL season is officially here, and I'm not sure about you, but my Sundays are starting to look exactly like this. Me in my favorite team's jersey, partner of the national right now, $5 and boom, $200 game and any wager dollars in bonus bet shot at join in on all the DraftKings sports and get sports. We've been around since the Cardinals. Simply put, you are the worst franchise in NFL history. Yep. We've been around since 1920 when Hitler was still just a shitty painter in Austria, and you have nothing to show for it except a couple of Mickey Mouse rings in 1925 and 1947 that nobody alive except for Sister Jean.
Mickey Mouse rings. They have a 16.5% chance in the playoffs.
Remembers or even cares about. No wonder all you Cardinals fans slurp Larry Fitzgerald every chance you get. He's the only memorable thing your franchise has ever produced, and even then, he still was just an overrated compiler / accused woman beater. He only had like 3 great seasons in 17 years. I would put Devontae Adams over him all time right now. If you root for the Cardinals, it's because you have no ambition in life and will die alone and sad. Atlanta Falcons. You had a 25-point lead with 18 minutes left in the Super Bowl and somehow lost. You will never live that down, even if you win a ring with the run-heavy 1980s Texas high school football-ass offense Arthur Smith is trying to implement. But you Falcons fans already know this, and you wear your pain as some sick badge of honor like it's something to be proud of, when it's actually the equivalent of being proud that you regularly piss and shit yourself in public. Everybody is disgusted by you, and nobody respects you. Your last star quarterback was a choking dog, and your second to last star quarterback was a dog choker. Congrats, losers. Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young is the Eric Fisher of quarterbacks picked first overall. He's smaller than a pair of A-cup tits, and he doesn't have a strong arm, isn't a great athlete, and he couldn't even win a national title at Alabama. For fuck's sake, A.J. McCarron, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Coker, and Greg McElroy could do it, but not Bryce? I know how this will go. When Young inevitably sucks, you Panthers fans will all compare him to rookie Peyton Manning or rookie John Elway or some other all-time great quarterback who had a blood rookie year. I'm telling you now, shut the fuck up. Your team has not been relevant since 2015, and Cam Newton remains one of the most overrated players ever. I know you've all probably tried to forget about Super Bowl 50 and done enough mental gymnastics to consider it a blowout loss, but oh no, my friends. Your team had not one, but 2 drives in the fourth quarter of that game, down 6 with a chance to win, and your GOAT Newton couldn't come through either time. Some might say he even dropped the ball. And that was actually the second Super Bowl your team had an amazing chance to win at the very end before spewing diarrhea all over the field. Thanks a lot, John Casey. Congrats on having Michael Jordan on your team. No, I'm not talking about the second best basketball player ever after LeBron. I mean the mediocre offensive lineman. You all know what this means, though. If you want to win a championship, you're going to have to sign Scottie Pippen. Also, your head coach. This means, though, if you want to win a championship, you're...
Playoff win percentage, 58% without an all-star, 10% without Scottie Pippen. That is so true. Like, that's the thing, though. Jordan had Scottie. And then all the time Scottie, and then you look at all the games he played without Scottie, how good he was versus the games with Scottie. And then you look at Jordan, it's like, yeah, no. And look at LeBron, it's like, yeah,
you're going to have to sign Scottie Pippen. Also, your head coach is literally the Third Reich, Chicago Bears. Speaking of MJ, the city where he won 6 rings against community college finals opponents thanks to Phil Jackson's system and Scottie Pippen, also has an NFL team. Did you know this? It can be easy to forget about since the Bears have been dog crap for the last 16 years outside of 2010 and 2018. It's one thing for Bears fans to think Justin Fields is good because fans always want to believe that their crappy young quarterbacks are going to be good someday. day, but Fields has somehow tricked a decent amount of non-Bears fans that he's actually good. The best way to describe Fields is like this. He has 3 or 4 plays every game where he looks like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and about 25 to 30 plays every game where he looks like he doesn't belong in the NFL. Bears fans should know better considering they just went through this "no, he's actually good, you're just a hater" song and dance with Mitch Trubisky, but at least Trubisky had 2018 to look back on. Fields has nothing. If you Bears fans were smart, you would stop fighting me on this and lean in 100% on tanking for Caleb Williams. Also, much like the Ravens, the Bears should have about 5 or 6 rings considering the amount of incredible defenses they've had over the years. Instead, they've got fewer rings than the Buccaneers. This doesn't stop all of you Bears fans from acting like the 80s Bears were a dynasty though. Walter Payton was a deeply flawed human being and his playoff stats suck. Dallas Cowboys. There's so much low-hanging fruit for material that I could use here as an Eagles fan, like the NFC Championship game drought or how much Dak and Romo sucked in big moments, but you Cowboys fans are used to that, so I'll give you something that I know will trigger most of you. Are you ready for it? Here you go. Jerry Jones is a really good owner. Oh yes, I can hear you seething now. He has given you the best stadium in the entire league. He's helped give your team more exposure than anybody else, regardless of results. He's kept the Cowboys cheerleaders as the league standard, honestly his best accomplishment, and, in all honesty, built really great teams. Just look at the Cowboys' track record of talent over the last 15 to 20 years. Tony Romo, Dak, Zeke Elliott, DeMarco Murray, Terrell Owens, Dez Bryant, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Jason Witten, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Andre Giroud, Flozell Adams, Leonard Davis, DeMarcus Ware, Jay Ratliff, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Terrace Newman, Trevon Diggs, Sean Lee, Roy Williams. That's a lot of good players. Way more than what most teams can say. Yet you ungrateful Dallas fans pretend Jerry is worse than Dan Snyder. Your team's lack of playoff success since '96 is not because of Jerry Jones. He's just a convenient scapegoat for all of you. Now, don't get me wrong, Jones is a piece of shit and I trust him about as far as I could throw him, but he's done his job well. Still, being 0-7 in the divisional round since
I messed up my own recording, great.
100% on tanking for Caleb Williams. Also, much like the Ravens, the Bears should have about 5 or 6 rings considering the amount of incredible defenses they've had over the years. Instead, they've got fewer rings than the Buccaneers. This doesn't stop all of you Bears fans from acting like the 80s Bears were a dynasty though. Walter Payton was a deeply flawed human being and his playoff stats suck. Dallas Cowboys. There's so much low-hanging fruit for material that I could use here as an Eagles fan, like the NFC Championship game drought or how much Dak and Romo sucked in big moments. But you Cowboys fans are used to that, so I'll give you something that I know will trigger most of you. Are you ready for it? Here you go. Jerry Jones is a really good owner. Oh yes, I can hear you seething now. He has given you the best stadium in the entire league. He's helped give your team more exposure than anybody else, regardless of results. He's kept the Cowboys cheerleaders as the league standard, honestly his best accomplishment, and, in all honesty, built really great teams. Just look at the Cowboys' track record of talent over the last 15 to 20 years. Tony Romo, Dak, Zeke Elliott, DeMarco Murray, Terrell Owens, Dez Bryant, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Jason Witten, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Andre Giroud, Flozell Adams, Leonard Davis, DeMarcus Ware, Jay Ratliff, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Terrace Newman, Trevon Diggs, Sean Lee, Roy Williams. That's a lot of good players. Way more than what most teams can say. Yet you ungrateful Dallas fans pretend Jerry is worse than Dan Snyder. Your team's lack of playoff success since '96 is not because of Jerry Jones. He's just...
I will say this. I actually trust Jerry Jones to run my team. Although I know he's going to have them be coasting, at least I can sit here and be happy about the fact that my team is decent enough to actually perform.
It's a convenient scapegoat for all of you. Now, don't get me wrong, Jones is a piece of shit and I trust him about as far as I could throw him, but he's done his job well. Still, being 0-7 in the divisional round since Tupac died is a hilarious stat, and I personally love it. Detroit Lions. Look at you, Lions fans. You're the darlings of the NFL with your lovable meathead head coach, your goofy quarterback, and good roster. Wait, what? The Lions have always been a joke, so Lions fans have embraced the suck, wearing their team's awfulness on their sleeves as if surviving all the bad years is something honorable. Detroit has never come close to achieving anything important since 1957. Case in point, John F. Kennedy has only missed 1 Lions playoff win. But now, though, all of the excuses for losing and underachieving won't fly. Lions fans always excuse Barry Sanders being a crappy playoff performer and career loser because it's the Lions. They excuse all of Matthew Stafford's mediocrity because it's the Lions. They excuse Megatron quitting at his peak because it's the Lions. Well, Lions fans, you are all cowards who are afraid of winning because with winning comes expectations. And, yes, the chance of disappointment. For as much crap as I give some great players or teams for quote-unquote not winning more, at least they were actually there in the thick of things. You Lions fans preferred to remain on the sidelines like a bunch of beta cucks because you suck. Just like your piece of shit city. Green Bay Packers. I know a bunch of beta cucks because you suck. Just like
It's in the world. How to protect yourself.
like your piece of shit city. Green Bay Packers. I know you all expect me to talk about how the Packers only have 2 rings with Favre and Rodgers, and while true, it's talked about so much it's lost its impact a bit. Instead, I'm going to go even deeper. That's what she said. Packers fans are arrogant snobs, and while some of that arrogance might be justified, as Green Bay has been one of the best teams in the league over the last 3 decades, it's all about championships at the end of the day. And for a town that proudly refers to itself as Title Town, they are desperately short on titles. No, not just since Favre joined the picture in 1992, but since the late 60s. How can you call yourself Title Town when you've got just 2 rings and 3 Super Bowl appearances over the last 55 years? Normally, 2 rings and 3 Super Bowl appearances is nothing to sneeze at, but I'm sorry, Title Town, quote unquote, should have more rings than the Buccaneers since Richard Nixon was president. Most of the Packers' dominance and championships came in the pre-Super Bowl era and bled over a couple years into the Super Bowl era, so they quote unquote technically have 4 Super Bowls, which makes them sound a lot more clutch than they've actually been. Basically, Green Bay is the Boston Celtics of the NFL. They won a bunch of rings in a shit era, then coasted on that reputation for the rest of their existence. 2 rings and 3 Super Bowl appearances has already been done by Patrick Mahomes in his first 5 years. Heck, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick outdid Green Bay's last 55 seasons in their first 4 seasons together.
True.
Maybe Jordan Love will do what Favre and Rodgers couldn't, which is actually win multiple titles to justify Green Bay's reputation as a championship city instead of being a glorified Midwestern version of the New York Knicks. I doubt it though. Los Angeles Rams. As I said earlier, the only thing worse than being bad is being irrelevant, and despite winning a Super Bowl in the last 20 months, the Rams are somehow irrelevant again. Well, that is, unless you're talking about the worst defending Super Bowl champions ever, an honor which the 2022 Rams easily claim. Are there even any real Rams fans out there anymore? I kind of feel like I'm just shouting at 5 people here. Imagine winning the Super Bowl and then everybody forgetting about it 30 seconds afterwards. That's the Rams with Super Bowl 56. Historians will look back on 2021 and wonder how the fuck a career loser like Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. It was a fluke, a blip on the radar, Flacco-esque. Most people act like the Rams franchise started in 1999 with the greatest show on turf. And while the greatest show on turf absolutely underachieved, it's incredible how badly the Rams underachieved in the playoffs in the 70s. You want to know what team led the league in wins from 1973 to 1978? Not the Steelers, not the Cowboys, not the Raiders, Vikings, or the Dolphins. No, it was the Rams. And guess how many Super Bowl appearances they had to show for it? 0. They finally made the Super Bowl in 1979 and choked away a 4th quarter lead. Both the 2001 and 2018 versions of the Rams scored over 500 regular season points just to put up a combined 20 points in 2 Super Bowl losses to Tom Brady. Fuck you! Your first ring came against a Jeff Fisher team, so it doesn't really count either. Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are still the best team in NFL history to never win a Super Bowl. The entire franchise is a legacy of failure. Since last year's victory to never win a Super Bowl count either. Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are still the best team in NFL history to never win a Super Bowl. The entire franchise is a legacy of failure. Since last year's video, they could now add losing a home playoff game to Daniel Jones after winning 13 games in the regular season to their resume. The best part about the Vikings' failures are that they come in neatly packaged stages. There's the 4 Super Bowl losses from 1969 to 1976. Then there's the lost decade of the 80s, followed by the infamous 1998 choke at home versus Atlanta after going 15-1. Then you have the 41-0 blowout loss to the Giants in the 2000 NFC Championship game while being favored. Fast forward to 2009 where your welfare stealing, allegedly, quarterback had your team on the verge of the Super Bowl before choking as he normally did. Then of course there's 2017 where you had a legendary win versus the Saints in the divisional round just to get skull-fucked by Big Dick Nick and the Eagles 38-7 in the NFC Championship game. Immediately following that season, the Kirk Cousins era began, which has produced just 1 playoff win. Kevin O'Connell is an NPC. Justin Jefferson is not as good as Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp. Also, the Gritty is the most annoying dance ever, and anybody who does it should be arrested. I just checked again, and yup, Randy Moss is still not better than Jerry Rice. Rest in peace to all of the poor innocent birds who get killed by the piece of shit stadium you play in. Rest in peace to all of the checked again and
Randy Moss, Jerry Rice. Head to head in the regular season, so Jerry Rice is out. Overall stats. This is how many games. average, receiving yards, receptions, receiving yards. Yeah, no, Randy Moss. I forgot. They always said Randy Moss plays when he wants to.
And yup, Randy Moss is still not better than Jerry Rice. Rest in peace to all of the poor innocent birds who get killed by the piece of shit stadium you play in now. New Orleans Saints. Saints fans, you had first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback play for 15 years and 1 ring to show for it. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers got most of the crap for not winning more during that time, but you guys were even worse. At least Green Bay made 5 NFC Championship games with Rodgers compared to New Orleans making just 3 with Breeze. Breeze was a great quarterback, except of course for his last game where he played like dog shit and helped Tom Brady win another Super Bowl. Fuck you, Drew. But he was also a dink and dunk merchant and a stat patter and pretty boring to watch. Having 6 losing seasons is inexcusable for a quarterback of his stature, even if his defenses were terrible. Regardless, it's safe to say the Breeze-Payton era will be as good as it ever gets for you gumbo-eating fat fucks in New Orleans. The only bowl Derek Carr is leading you to is the toilet bowl. He will cry uncontrollably in at least 3 post-game press conferences this year, and you will rave about how much he cares, all just to finish with a mediocre record, which is only due to your division being so terrible. Carr is basically Kirk Cousins with eyeliner. But at least he's not an alleged sexual deviant like your annoying-ass scrub backup Jameis Winston. Remember when your team's front office helped cover up abuses in the Catholic Church? I do. Bountygate happened too. I remember. I don't even think anybody cares about Hurricane Katrina anymore, to be honest. New York Giants. Most of this video features franchises who did not win as much as they should have, but the Giants are the opposite. They have 4 Super Bowl rings and 5 Super Bowl appearances while playing in the biggest media market in the world, so they get hyped up as a blue blood franchise when really they're the NFL version of the Florida Marlins. Every once in a while they fluke their way to a Super Bowl win before reverting back to being dog shit for prolonged stretches of time. In the 57 seasons of the Super Bowl era, the Giants have missed the playoffs 40 times. That's 70% of the time, by the way. They've won their division just 8 times. They've made the NFC Championship game just 5 times. They've won a playoff game in only 10 seasons. They are 22nd out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. Even since just 1986, the period in which they've won 4 rings, they're only 16th out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. They are not an iconic flow team. They've won a playoff game in only 10 seasons. They are 22nd out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. Even since just 1986, the period in which they've won 4 rings, they're only 16th out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. They are not an iconic franchise. They are a crap franchise with some fluke runs. Daniel Jones is still awful, and nothing Giants say will ever change that. Saquon Barkley is a shiny new television in a burning building. It's cool to look at, but ultimately useless. Giants fans love taking the moral high ground over Eagles fans while they praise Lawrence Taylor, aka a guy who is a drug addict and a pedophile. Eli Manning was an average as fuck quarterback whose entire legacy is based on 2 games where he led his offense to under 20 points both times. He also tried to pass off fake memorabilia as legit and belongs nowhere near the Hall of Fame unless it's as a visitor. Fuck New Jersey Giants. That is your real name. Philadelphia Eagles. We finally get to my team, and if you think I'm going to take it easy on us, you're wrong. We have 1 ring in our entire existence, and that is the only thing separating us from being the Vikings. There is so much disappointment in our history that it's disgusting. From getting blown out in the Super Bowl in 1980 by the Raiders to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 NFC Championship game losses in an 8-year span during the Andy Reid era, 2 of which came at home, by the way, to losing an absurdly winnable Super Bowl in 2004 to the fucking Patriots because of 4 turnovers, 3 of which came on their side of the field. We should have made at least 4 Super Bowls during that span in 2002, 03, 04, and 08 and gotten at least 2 rings. But instead, we won jack shit. Then, of course, there's last year, when we were the best team in the league all year, got a huge break in the NFC Championship game with Purdy getting hurt, just to choke away a 10-point halftime lead in Super Bowl 57. I love you, Jalen, but what the fuck, bro? You fumbled that shit without even getting touched. But even if Hurts hadn't had that fumble 6, our historic pass rush turned into a bunch of scrubs, even accounting for the compromised field. Not 1 fucking defensive stop all second half, and the special teams. Really great time to allow a guy who gets injured enough to apply for a fucking handicap sticker to return a punt 60 yards. Fuck! We scored 35 points in the Super Bowl and lost. We might get back to another Super Bowl because our team is currently loaded, but we will never put up that many points again. I guarantee it. Jalen Hurts is one major lower body injury away from becoming the next RG3. Eagles fans are fickle, sad motherfuckers with no respect for anybody. The most famous member of our fan base, EDP445, is a morbidly obese pedophile who got caught trying to hook up with a 13-year-old. We boo injured players. It's gross. I want to say we don't deserve our reputation as a horrible fan base, but we really do. Outside of 2017, this team has always let me down in every big moment, and because I'm an idiot, I will continue to get my hopes up every single time. We should have at least 4 or 5 rings right now, but instead, we have the least rings of any NFC East team. And this is with the Cowboys and Washington giving us 30 years to catch up. Last but not least, our newest first-round pick, Jalen Carter, was at the scene of several people dying because he partook in street racing at highly illegal speeds. Just further, San Francisco. 49ers are the most bipolar franchise in the league. Since 1970, you've either been Super Bowl contenders or absolute scrubs with almost nothing in between. It's insane how many times your team has whiffed on high draft picks, especially Trey Lance, since Mr. 28-3 and...
That's the thing. Reuben Foster. Solomon Thomas was pretty good. Not as good as Nick Bosa, but he was good.
John Lynch took over, yet you Silicon Valley douchebags still have a loaded roster thanks to pure luck in later rounds. And worse yet, you still have not won a ring since 1994. Hell, even the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl more recently than you. You had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 54 with the ball and somehow lost by double digits. You had a 10-point lead in the fourth...
I will always blame Kyle Shanahan for these 2 losses. This man is the reason why the 49ers choked in that Super Bowl and choked in this playoff
of the
game.
2021 NFC Championship.
It's fine. The Rams got the Super Bowl afterwards. It's fine. The 49ers got Kyle Shanahan's the new Andy Reid. I'm sorry.
Game and lost. You had first and goal at the opponent's 7-yard line, down 5 with 2 minutes left in Super Bowl 47, and turned the ball over on downs and lost. Once you add in the Kyle Williams fumbles in the 2011 NFC Championship game and the Sherman tipped interception in the end zone at the end of the 2013 NFC Championship game, I'd say in just the last 12 seasons, your team has pissed away about 5 rings. Last year, the one NFC Championship game loss you all bitch about because of Purdy getting hurt is about the only big game loss you've had in decades where you lost without choking. Hang the banner now. Only lost by 24 points after starting quarterback got hurt in an NFC Championship game. You have a 4-0 record in the playoffs against Aaron Rodgers and still have fewer rings than he does since he entered the league. Talk about not being able to finish. Shout out Philip Rivers. You won 80% of your since he entered the league. Talk about not being able to finish. Shout out Philip Rivers. You won 80% of your rings in the 80s, which is whatever, but only squeaking out 1 ring in the 90s with the historic amount of talent those rosters had is disgusting. Y'all lost at home in the 1990, Roger Craig, 1992, and 1997 NFC Championship games. So that's now, what, 8 or 9 rings in the last 30 years you've pissed down the drain? Damn, a franchise having 5 rings has never sounded more underwhelming. Just like Steve Young in the playoffs outside of 1994. Joe Montana was a frail system quarterback whose aforementioned backup replaced him and put up better numbers than him. The entire Kaepernick fiasco hasn't been forgotten about either, by the way. In conclusion, 49ers fans, your team is no different than the Cowboys since 1996. You just decide to choke in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl instead of the divisional round. Watch your step when walking in San Francisco. There's a good chance you'll step in shit. Seattle Seahawks. Hawks fans, everybody talks about your team throwing an interception 1 yard away from repeating as Super Bowl champs in Super Bowl 49. Nobody talks about the Seattle offense having the ball twice, up 24-14 and getting no points, or being up 24-21 and getting no points, or how the much-famed Legion of Boom allowed a fucking dink and dunk merchant to lead back-to-back touchdowns, all to bail out Tom Brady, of course, in the fourth quarter. This unfathomable choke has overshadowed many other chokes your franchise has had in the last decade, which all stick out like a sore thumb around your 43-8 Super Bowl win in 2013. Taking a 1-point lead in the last 30 seconds of the 2012 divisional round versus Atlanta, and still losing with a quote-unquote legendary defense was a dandy. Then in 2015, you lost by 7 to a 15-1 Panthers team in the divisional round, a game in which the difference was another Russell Wilson interception, a pick 6, and you only even got there in the first place because Blair Walsh whiffed on an extra point-length field goal in the wildcard round. You got your back blown out in 2016 by the Falcons, you blew a fourth quarter lead to the Cowboys in the 2018 wildcard round, failed on a go-ahead drive attempt in the fourth quarter of the divisional round in 2019 to the Packers, then got blown out at home in the 2020 wildcard round by the Rams, who were led by Jared Goff with a broken thumb. In 2021, Russell Wilson got hurt and you missed the playoffs, then traded him to Denver, officially ending the Wilson era. What do you notice about all of these losses that I described? That's right, there's no conference championship game appearances. The much ballyhooed quote-unquote Legion of Doom could only muster 2 conference championship game appearances? Hell, Mark Sanchez did that. But it gets better, Seahawks fans. You haven't won a playoff game where your opponent scored a touchdown since 2014. Specifically, the 2014 NFC Championship game, which was a fluke win thanks to Brandon Bostic and a prayer being answered on a 2-point conversion. Thanks to Pete Carroll, Brandy Love, being a conspiracy theorist, you somehow got a 30-touchdown pass season out of Geno Smith to remain respectable record-wise, but I'm sure that putting your future hopes on a 33-year-old quarterback who's been dog shit for 90% of his career will work out just fine, especially in a division with the 49ers. When Seattle isn't being brought up for its football team being a bunch of chokers, it's most known for the glorified liquid shit known as Starbucks coffee, outdated grunge bands, and being where Ted Bundy grew up. Congratulations, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shout out to the 15 or 20 actual Buccaneers fans that are left now that Tom Brady has finally discarded your team like a used condom. Statistically, the Bucs have the worst win-loss percentage of any team in NFL history, and it's not a surprise. The surprise is that you've somehow managed to win 2 Super Bowls. Well, Tom Brady's devil luck and no crowds for road playoff games explains your 2020 Mickey Mouse ring, but 2002? I'm not sure how that happened. Without Brady, your team is back to being the irrelevant franchise it always has been outside of the late 90s, early 2000s. This franchise sucks so badly, you somehow had a losing record with Tom Brady as your quarterback. I never thought I would see that, not that I'm complaining. Mike Evans is back to being the face of the franchise now, a likable guy who might even be a Hall of Famer someday. One of the few things you Bucs fans have to look forward to is Evans continuing his 1,000-yard streak, but even if he gets another 1K this year, he still isn't the best receiver from the 2014 draft. That distinction belongs to Davante Adams. Now that all the Brady bandwagoners are gone from your franchise, most of the venom has gone from me as well. You're too irrelevant to get upset over, and I would bet good money your head coach and starting quarterback in Week 9 will both be different than they are in Week 1. Washington Commanders. Washington, through years of hard work under now ex-owner Daniel Snyder, has somehow managed to become the model of both embarrassment and irrelevance at the same time. It's so bad that nobody cares they have 3 rings, 2 of which came in strike-shortened seasons, so do they really count? As an Eagles fan, I can tell you Washington is the NFC East equivalent of the handicapped relative you've heard a lot about from your parents, but have actually only met a couple times at family reunions. No Eagles, Giants, or Cowboys fan even give Washington any peace of mind because they don't deserve it. 2 playoff wins and only 7 winning seasons over the last 30 years? That's right. They've had more team names than playoff wins since 1993. Once in a blue moon, they win a division title with a 7-9, 9-7, or 10-6 record, go one and done in the playoffs, and then revert back to being dog crap. The only time in the last 30 years where it looked like they might actually have a future was the 14 or so games RG3 played as a rookie before his knee did the stanky leg in the playoffs. Snyder is gone, but for as awful as he wasn't the one on the field getting destroyed all these years. Until Washington actually hits on a franchise quarterback, there will never be anything to worry about. And I can already tell you that Fat Baker Mayfield, aka Sam Howell, will not be that guy. But I'm saving my most triggering opinion for last, as any smart content creator would.
I'm saying, we've had Sean Taylor, let him rest in peace. Don't talk about Sean. We've already disrespected him enough, and we've already had franchise quarterbacks that we could have done something with. It's just Dan Snyder's a bitch. RG3 should have been better. Not better. RG3 should have been fine, but now we decided to screw over his career. Kirk Cousins isn't the best, but he's not really the worst either. We could have done something with him. Heck, Taylor Heineke was giving us something. The only reason we didn't start is because
Here we go. Sean Taylor is massively overrated because he died young. Could he have become a Hall of Famer? Maybe.
I agree with this statement. Although it's a true statement. He's an overrated player solely because he died young. There's no telling what could have happened. He could, based on what he was doing, he could have been a Hall of Famer, but nah.
Would he have become a better safety than Ed Reed and Ronnie Lott? Fuck no. He might not have even become better than Troy Polamalu or Brian Dawkins. Nobody is perfect, and we all make mistakes. Being a Washington Red Commanders team fan is some truly sick shit. Right up there with murder and hiding the remote.
Bruh.
This is our time.
Hello, everybody. It feels so good to be back with another year of NFL Weekly Reviews. And, hold on. I'm getting a call. Hello? What is it, Deborah? I told you specifically several times not to disturb me when I'm doing my videos.
Oh, God. Not
I don't care what the lawyers said. We agreed on joint custody. Yeah, well, we'll see about that at the next hearing. I'm hanging up. No offense to Aaron Hernandez. Yeah, so anyway, here's week 1 of the 2023 NFL season reviewed with some brand new weekly awards I came up with. Enjoy. Detroit versus Kansas City. The season kicked off, no offense to Kareem Hunt, with Hunt's former team and Carl Sheffer's employer, Kansas City Chiefs, against the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately for KC, they were without All-Pro Travis Kelce, who missed the game due to podcast duties, and famous NFL Combine 40-yard dash runner Chris Jones. Detroit struck first with a Jared Goff touchdown pass to go up 7-0, but NFL main character Patrick Mahomes answered with a touchdown pass of his own to tie it at 7. Detroit's Marvin Jones fumbled the ball like an asshole inside KC's 10-yard line on Detroit's next drive, but the teams exchanged punts before Mahomes worked his magic in the last minute to get KC on top 14-7 at halftime. After exchanging punts to start the second half, when it looked like KC was going to blow the game open, Detroit stole the momentum as Mahomes threw a terrible pass that hit handicapped parking spot taker Kadarius Toney in the hands and resulted in a 50-yard pick six to tie the game at 14. KC eventually took a 20-14 lead early in the fourth after back-to-back field goals, but Goff led a long touchdown drive to give Detroit the lead back 21-20 with 7 minutes left. For some reason, Matt Nagy, the Chiefs took the ball out of Mahomes' hands on second and third and short and lost yards, resulting in a punt. KC got the ball back again with 2:30 left when Mahomes disgustingly told Toney to drop another pass that would have put KC in field goal range for the win. After a couple more drops, KC eventually turned it over on downs and would never get the ball back again, as Dan Campbell's manly biceps and pecs helped secure the massive upset to get Detroit to 1-0 and saw KC fall to 0-1. The NFL is a what have you done for me lately business, and I can safely say that Andy Reid is now coaching for his job. Tampa Bay versus Minnesota. Fresh off of a 13-win season, shout out Karl Malone, the Vikings job. Tampa Bay versus for me lately business, and I can safely say that Andy Reid is...
I don't agree with it. That's a bit too early. They literally won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. Granted, not 2 years ago, a year ago. You have talk about a dynasty build. Like, firing Andy Reid, I don't like that. That's a good way to fuck up Patrick Mahomes' career. I don't see him being fired. I don't see him being fired. I don't see him
now
being
coaching
fired.
for his job. Tampa Bay versus Minnesota. Fresh off of a 13-win
unless, like, he has two, piss-poor seasons, then, like, nah, I don't
season, shout out Karl Malone. The Vikings were expected to roll to an easy win over the post-Tom Dilfer Buccaneers. But all you silly gooses forgot that when Kirk Cousins is involved, nothing is ever simple. Kirk lost 2 fumbles in the first half to kill 2 promising drives like a douche, while also finding Jordan Addison, the star rookie, on a great 39-yard touchdown pass because that's what Kirk does. Minnesota held a 10-3 lead late in the first half, but new Bucs quarterback Baker Mayfield showed all of the teams that passed on him in the 2018 draft what they were missing out on by finding impending free agent Mike Evans on a nice 28-yard touchdown pass to tie the game at 10. Kirk then drove Minnesota to the Tampa Bay 13-yard line, looking to take the lead back into halftime, but he just had to throw a terrible interception like a dickhead, so the score stayed tied at 10. On Tampa's first second half drive, Baker threw another touchdown pass following a Minnesota penalty on a field goal attempt to put Tampa up 17-10. Minnesota responded with a long touchdown drive of their own as Cousins found not Dalvin Cook to tie the game at 17. The teams then exchanged punts like a bunch of wimps before Baker clutched up like it was a Saturday night special at Cheesecake Factory as Tampa kicked a 57-yard field goal to go up 20-17. There was no more clutch time magic for Kirk this time as Minnesota went 3 and out with 5 minutes left and never got the ball back as Baker converted multiple first downs to secure the win for Tampa. Personally, I haven't seen the Buccaneers play this hard since week 17 of 2019. Cleveland versus Cincinnati. An absolute shit show of a game. As if it wasn't enough for the Browns to start a sexual predator at quarterback, they also had to wear patches of a dead serial woman abuser Jim Brown on their uniforms. I'm honestly stunned they couldn't find room for an R. Kelly patch. Anyway, this game saw 17 punts, 4 field goals, 2 turnovers, and just 2 touchdowns. Disgusting and unwatchable. But I watched it anyway because I'm a fucking hero. Nasty Man 4 continued to be dog shit like he was in his 6 games a year ago, but he wasn't as bad as the new richest man in NFL history, Joe Burrow, who played like he had a full diaper. Burrow finished with 82 passing yards on 31 attempts, the worst performance I've seen out of him since the fourth quarter quarter of Super Bowl 56 and the fourth quarter of the AFC Championship game last year. I'm convinced the Browns replaced him with Macaulay Culkin before the game just for shits and giggles to see if anybody would notice. After 3.5 quarters of waiting for Burrow, more like Joe Butthole, to finally do something, he took a sack from Myles Garrett on 4th down, then Groper Cleveland threw the only touchdown pass of the game, put Cleveland up 24-3 with 9:11 left. Never forget. Every single person involved in this game should feel ashamed of themselves. I feel dirty just reviewing it. San Francisco versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense looked amazing in the preseason, leading some pundits, not me because I'm smart, to say that Kenny Kittenmittens and the Steelers would upset the title-contending 49ers at home in Week 1. Well, that didn't happen. San Fran scored on its first 4 drives to go up 20-0 early in the second quarter. That's pretty good. Get it? Because their quarterback's name is Brock Purdy? Fuck you, alright, I'm trying my best. While poor Kittenmittens was busy throwing picks with his tiny hands and punting the ball away, Pittsburgh would finally put a drive together to score a touchdown to make it 20-7 at halftime, but Christian Planned Parenthood McCaffrey snuffed out any life Pittsburgh had before it could start by executing the hardest working 65-yard run in NFL history to put San Fran back up 27-7. I haven't seen such sneaky athleticism and grit in the backfield since Peyton Hillis. He gets a perfect 10 out of 10 daughter dating rating from me. Anyway, that was about it for this game. The only other play of note was Purdy fumbling and TJ Watt eating Purdy's ass to get to the fumble. What a competitor. Unfortunately for Watt, his ass-eating efforts were for naught, as Purdy kept control of the ball. The final score saw San Fran win 30-7, sending all the Yinzers back to their crappy homes to prepare for another week of hard labor at the local steel mill. I'm just saying, Ben Roethlisberger had too much class to let something like this happen. Washington versus Arizona. A potential NFC Championship game preview. Haha. Lived up to the billing. No offense to poor people. In this one, we had a literal rocket scientist, Josh Dobbs, face off against Fat Baker Mayfield, aka Sam Howell. It was mostly a boring game full of punts, field goals, and fumbles. Washington got post-Dan Snyder era started with a Howell touchdown pass to Madden creative player Brian Robinson to go up 7-0. The rest of the first half saw a bunch of punts and a couple of Arizona field goals before the most exciting play of the game, an Arizona strip sack for a fumble that put them up 13-10 at halftime. The Cardinals, who I predicted to go 0-17 by the way, kicked a field goal to go up 16-10 early in the third, but that was it for them offensively. The rest of the third saw a bunch of boring punts before Washington finally got another touchdown on a sneaky athletic run by Howell to go up 17-16 with 12 minutes left. Dobbs couldn't do anything, shocker, on the next 2 drives, the second of which ended with a fumble deep in their own territory to set up a Washington field goal. Down 20-16 with 2:23 left, Mr. Rocket Scientist Smarty Pants had a golden chance to steal a win, but ended up turning it over on downs for the loss. How the hell can a guy be smart enough to be a rocket scientist yet can't read a fucking basic defense? Let this be a lesson, people. Finding a good quarterback is a crapshoot. It's all luck. There is no such thing as a quarterback guru or quarterback expert, except for me, of course. Atlanta versus Carolina. Before I begin, I just want to congratulate Bryce Young on becoming the first preschooler to ever start an NFL game. His first drive ended on downs, and his second drive ended in a terrible interception deep in Carolina territory, which set up an absolutely ridiculous touchdown by another rookie, Bijan Mustard Robinson, to put Atlanta up 7-0. Why Mustard? Because he goes well with anything. Young's only highlight of the day would follow as he found soulless tight end Hayden Hurst to tie the game at 7 at halftime. Carolina took a 10-7 lead following a field goal on their opening second half drive, but another bad interception by Young set up Atlanta with more points to tie the game at 10. Following a Miles Sanders fumble, Atlanta scored on a Tyler Algier touchdown run to go up 17-10 early in the fourth. That's right, Falcons quarterback Desmond Ridder gets credited with a game-winning drive because he handed the ball off twice inside Carolina's 4-yard line at the start of the fourth quarter. Clutch as hell. Ridder also finished the game with more catches than Drake London, which isn't a good sign if you're a Falcons fan. Anyway, Atlanta would add another touchdown run by Algier to make it 24-10, while Young failed to produce any points on 4 fourth-quarter drives due to not being able to see over his offensive lineman because he's only 4'7". It's just one game, but any doubts I had about Young as an NFL quarterback were only reinforced by this performance. The one positive development from this game, the Third Reich was unsuccessful. Baltimore versus Houston. Speaking of underwhelming and unimpressive 2023 first-round quarterback picks, Houston's CJ Stroud didn't do much in his career debut either. Neither team should come away feeling great about this one, in my opinion. Baltimore is expected to be a title contender, and they struggled to pull away from a horrible Texans team. Plus, J.K. Dobbins, who scored the opening touchdown in this one, tore his Achilles and will miss the rest of the season. A massive weapon for the Ravens already gone. Houston put together back-to-back long field goal drives to make it 7-6 Baltimore at halftime before the Ravens finally got serious, leading back-to-back touchdown drives on Justice Hill touchdown runs to go up 22-6 late in the third quarter. Lamar Jackson had a horrible interception early on before settling down a bit, but the rap on him remains the same. If you can get Baltimore into pure passing situations wins, their offense can slow down considerably. The fourth quarter was mostly shit, which is right up new Baltimore receiver Odell Beckham Jr.'s alley. The two teams exchanged field goals, but that was it to reach the final score, a 25-9 Baltimore win. Again, I ask, what is CJ Stroud supposed to be great at? He has no standout traits, and I do not expect him to have a successful NFL career. That might be harsh, but I'm standing on it. No offense to amputees. Jacksonville versus Indianapolis. We finally get to the one first-round quarterback this year I'm actually excited about. Anthony Big Tony Richardson. The bar wasn't set very high, but he was easily the best of the three first-round quarterbacks in their debuts. Unfortunately for Big Tony, Jacksonville's former first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, looks to have taken another leap, as he was firing seeds all over the place. No offense to Nick Cannon. His first touchdown pass was a risky gamble on the run to Calvin Ridley, but it paid off to go up 7-0. Big Tony then ran for a score to tie it at 7. Indy failed to capitalize on some great field position, turning it over on downs twice before Lawrence threw another beautiful touchdown to legendary hotel guest Zay Jones to go up 14-7 at halftime. Big Tony's first career touchdown pass, a 39-yarder to Michael Pittman, would have made Tom Brady proud, to tie the game at 14. Jacksonville kicked a field goal to go up 17-14. Indy would fumble, but then forced a strip sack turned fumble 6 on Lawrence to take a 21-17 lead entering the fourth. Big Tony had 2 drives up 4 to do something, but punted both times. Lawrence then led a long touchdown drive to put Jacksonville back up 24-21 with 5 minutes left. With a chance to play hero, Big Tony then threw an interception into double coverage, which is actually extremely encouraging, because I like quarterbacks with rocket arms who throw into coverage like a goddamn man instead of plastic surgery merchants who rely on checkdowns. A few plays later, Travis Etienne ripped off a 26-yard touchdown run, put Jacksonville up 10 with 4 minutes left. Indy drove down to the Jacksonville goal line, but Big Tony got hurt, and Gardner Minshew couldn't produce any points on 3 tries from the 1-yard line as we reached the final score of 31-21. Despite the loss, the future is bright in Indy, outside of the racism. New Orleans versus Tennessee. The battle of ass in New Orleans between Ryan Tannehill and Derek Carr in his Saints debut. An absolute eyesore of a game to watch as a fan, and an absolute pain in the ass to try and summarize because there was so much awfulness. The only scores this game saw through most of the first 3 quarters were all field goals. In that same span, Ryan Tannehill threw 3 picks, while Derek, dude, where's my Carr, threw one of his own. Carr finally got the Saints into the end zone following Tannehill's 3rd interception to put the Saints up 16-9 entering the 4th. Tannehill had a chance to tie the game but had to settle for a field goal to cut it to 16-12. Crying Carr led New Orleans to a punt. Then Tannehill wasted his best chance to win the game, having 1st and 10 at the Saints' 15-yard line with 3:45 left before having to settle for another field goal. Carr led New Orleans to a punt. Then Tannehill wasted his best chance to win the game, having 1st and
He's open. That would be a decent one. That's a bit risky. This is a safer throw than that. But he's open here.
10 at the Saints' 15-yard line with 3:45 left before having to settle for another field goal. Carr would then drain the rest of the clock to win the game 16-15 for the Saints. This loss was awful for Tennessee beyond just this one game. Tannehill is awful, yet the 2 guys the team has drafted to be the quarterback of the future to supplant him, Malik Willis and Will Levis, are both so bad they can't even beat him out for the starting spot. Tennessee's ceiling presently is a wildcard team, while their next 3 to 4 years look Texans level bad. And I don't feel bad either. This is what Nashville deserves for unleashing country music onto the world. LA Rams versus Seattle. The definition of a tease. No, I don't mean your ex from college, or maybe I do. Nevertheless, I'm talking about this game. It looked like it would be competitive until the very end, yet it ended up being a blowout pretty quickly. The Rams had 0 problem moving the ball all game. No offense to Lance Armstrong. Looking very similar to the 2021 version that won it all, even without famous Jim Rat Cooper Kupp. Seattle scored 13 points on their first 3 drives to take a 13-7 lead into halftime, but LA would score on every second half drive, while Seattle failed to score on any of theirs. Rams fans, all 7 of you, should feel amazing after this game, since Matthew Stafford and his disturbingly white teeth looked great, while Seahawks fans should be concerned that Geno Smith was just a 1-year fluke. He had a nice touchdown pass to DK Metcalf, but did nothing other than crap his pants at an unblocked Aaron Donald on a completion. Seattle mustered just 180 yards on offense and went 2 for 9 on 3rd down in this 30-13 loss. Metcalf also could have killed a guy with a dirty shove late in the game. I am throwing up. This This is what happens when your city embraces that liquid shit known as Starbucks. Green Bay versus Chicago. A new era in the oldest rivalry in the NFL. Coming into this game, neither starting quarterback had shown anything in the league. Jordan Love, at least, had the excuse of sitting behind a legendary quarterback for 3 years. Justin Fields? Well, he continues to be hot ass, despite Bears fans insisting he's actually really good and that I'm just a hating ass hater. Love had great stats thanks to lots of yak and some favorable field position, but he did his job. Although I don't feel like we really learned anything new about him. We know Green Bay can dominate the Bears. That's like bragging about beating up a handicap kid. I want to see how Love does when he's not getting short fields and he doesn't have a lead most of the time. For all of their greatness, both Favre and Rodgers struggled in game-winning drive situations, which is a big reason why Green Bay hasn't won more rings over the last 30 years. Time will tell with Love. This game was competitive until midway through the third when Aaron Jones took over before hurting his hamstring, scoring back-to-back touchdowns to take it from a 10-6 lead to a 24-6 lead. Fields threw a touchdown to cut 24-14 entering the fourth, but Green Bay scored again on another Love touchdown pass to make it 31-14. Fields then threw a back-breaking pick six to seal the loss before padding his stats on a garbage time touchdown drive to reach the final 38-20 score. Are you on my side yet, Bears fans? Fields stinks. Stop fighting me and root for a tank to get Caleb Williams in the draft. Las Vegas versus Denver. Oh great, it's the Broncos, the most boring team in the league over the last 8 years. Maybe this year will be nope! Even with the gorgeous Jimmy Garoppolo in the mix, watching this game was like pulling teeth. No offense to the British. There were only 12 total possessions in this game, 5 by Denver and 7 by Vegas. Let's go possession by possession then, shall we? Vegas scored a touchdown on a sexy-ass touchdown by Jimmy Jacoby Myers, who famously threw a game-winning touchdown for Las Vegas last year. Denver responded with a long touchdown drive, capped off by a Russell Wilson touchdown pass to little Jordan Humphrey, but the extra point was missed. This would be huge later on. Vegas had a long field goal drive to make it 10-6. The teams exchanged punts, then Wilson led Denver on another touchdown drive to go up 13-10 at halftime. Denver missed a 55-yard field goal, then Jimmy G threw an interception after being distracted by his own handsomeness. Denver led a long drive, which stalled in the red zone and had to kick a field goal to go up 16-10 with 9 minutes left. Then Jimmy G, in the same stadium where just 1 year ago he put his foot down against racism, both literally and figuratively, led a clutch touchdown drive with another touchdown pass to Myers to go up 17-16 with 6:34 left. Wilson led Denver on a 3-and-out, then Jimmy G drained the remaining clock, including a sneaky and sexy 8-yard first down run on 3rd and 7 to seal the win. Good lord, I need to change my underwear. Philadelphia versus New England. I will never complain about a win, especially a season-opening win on the road against Bill Belichick, but man, that was a lot uglier and unimpressive than I thought it would be. No offense to the Barbie movie. Philly jumped out to a quick 16-0 lead following a pick six and an Ewok Elliott fumble deep in Patriots territory. But then, powered by Tom Brady's evil presence in the skybox, Philly's potent offense led by Jalen Hurts suddenly forgot how to play, allowing New England to get back into the game and make it a 16-14 game at halftime following back-to-back Mac Jones touchdown passes. At halftime, the Patriots held a ceremony to retire Tom Brady's number, picture scene here, and the second half was nothing but close calls for Philly. Jake Elliott converted 3 straight long field goals to go up 25-14 before the Patriots cut it to 25-20 with about 4 minutes left. New England then got 2 drives down 5 in the final 3:37 after Brady willed Jalen Hurts to fumble from the skybox. Thankfully, Mac Jones has the arm strength of a toddler, and his rookie receiver Keyshawn Booty, forgot to get his second foot down on an easy catch for the second time inside the Philly 10 that sealed the win for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts looked like the 2021 Hurts, but I'm not worried. Belichick is the GOAT defensive mind. If Hurts still looks this shaky after 3 to 4 games, I'll concede I might have overrated him. Jalen Carter is going to be a Hall of Famer, and I'm only like 60% joking. Miami versus LA Chargers.
I want to go back.
Jalen Carter is going to be a Hall of Famer, and I'm only like
just a sack on 32 pass rushes in the NFL debut, tied for the most pressures by a single rookie tackle.
60% joking. Miami versus LA Chargers. The most exciting and best game of the opening week, in my opinion. Let's review this in depth in a way that you won't get anywhere else. First, the Chargers scored a touchdown. Then the Dolphins scored a touchdown. Miami kicked a field goal. Then LA scored a touchdown. Then Miami scored a touchdown. Then the teams exchanged field goals, but they weren't done yet. LA scored a touchdown. Then Miami scored a touchdown. Then LA scored a touchdown. Then the teams exchanged field goals again, giving giving LA a 34-30 lead with 3:53 left in the game. But that was too much time for Tua Tagovailoa, who has the arm strength of a 90-year-old woman, but the mindset of a quarterback with a rocket arm. Tua found 3-time Pregnant Women Respecter of the Year winner Tyreek Hill for their second touchdown of the day to go up 36-34 with 1:45 left. Miami missed the extra point though, leaving the door open for Justin Herbert to put LA in field goal position for the win, but Miami's defense stiffened up like a 70-year-old's dick on Viagra, sacking Herbert twice to seal the win in one of the most impressive quarterback performances I can ever remember by Tua. Dallas versus New Jersey Giants. The Cowboys won this game 40-0, but you already knew that. A blocked field goal return touchdown, a pick six, blah blah blah. Both of these franchises are loser franchises, and the NFL needs to stop putting them on primetime every frickin' year. The Cowboys haven't made an NFC Championship game in 27 years, and the Giants have been one of the worst teams in the league since 1991 outside of 2 Florida Marlins fluke-ass runs. I'm going to use this time to rant about the Giants. Here's the deal. Daniel Jones is absolute garbage. I've said this for the last 5 years, and I hope the Giants never get rid of him. Last year, the Giants had their first non-horrible season in a while because Brian Daboll made one fucking adjustment, and that is using Jones more as a runner. And it worked fairly well because opponents weren't prepared for Jones being so good at running because he's a dorky white guy. It's literally the only thing he can do at a high level. Now the Giants' opponents have finally adjusted to Jones as a runner. They are once again dead in the water, and it will be another dumpster-type season for the Giants, where they belong. As for Dallas, Micah Parsons is still the weirdo, and Dak is still not that guy. And he's going to be replaced after the season by Trey Lance. I can't wait for it. Go do it, Jerry. New York Jets versus Buffalo. Well, the Aaron Rodgers era in New York lasted just 4 snaps before he tore his Achilles. Now the Jets are being back to being the same old boring-ass team they've always been, and it sucks. This is by far the worst Jet-related tragedy. You know what? No, I'm not going to say it. I'm a better person now than I was 5 minutes ago. I will say that it's straight up embarrassing for Buffalo that they couldn't beat Zach Wilson on the road for the 2nd straight year. Rodgers going down for the year after all the offseason hype makes the 2023 Jets the NFL equivalent of Rye-Fest. Josh Allen, meanwhile, looked like 2018-19 Allen, throwing 3 interceptions and basically being a bigger version of Zach Wilson, who will now have to actually play football this season instead of looking up local MILFs on his phone all game. That is, until he inevitably sucks so badly, the team has to find another quarterback. Maybe Super Bowl winning free agent Carson Wentz, perhaps? Don't you dare even say Tom Brady. I will literally reach out through my computer and bitch slap you in the fucking face if you
Tom
say
Brady.
That. The 2 biggest highlights of this game were Garrett Wilson's incredible interception on an errant Zach Wilson throw to tie the game at 13, and, of course, Hard Knocks' favorite rookie Xavier Gibson's game-winning punt return touchdown in overtime to seal the 22-16 Jets win. I fully expect the Bills to petition the league to outlaw punt returns in overtime now. The Jets may have won the battle, but they definitely lost the war. No offense to George W. Bush. Never forget. Now it's...
Are you cool?